All right. Give me a check 1 2 there, buddy.
Check 1 2.
Yo. Check 3. Give me the pi. Give me the...
3.1415 9265.
Okay, that's enough. Yeah. No. As I was saying before I started, I press record, by the way. Welcome to This Road Is Mine, featuring KARAC Hendriks and his
Offspring.
Yeah, that's right. The Offspring. Actually, The Offspring.
Apparently they're making a comeback.
They are. Yeah, I just read an article about them. I don't remember where or why, and I didn't read it. I actually skipped by the article.
No.
Yeah. I like The Offspring. They were really cool when they first came out. Slightly refreshing, but
I've only heard what they played on Lithium.
that's all you need to hear.
Yeah. What's that one song? Something about getting a job.
Yeah, why don't you get a job? Yeah,
Yeah.
they had.
They
had Come Out and Play was like one of the first ones, and you'd like that one because it has that weird lick.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, so it'd be
learn it.
some sort of a nerd thing. Yeah, it'd be
Cool.
some mode or whatever.
Something like that.
Yeah, for sure, exactly. But yeah, and so the whole point of a when you're doing like a check thing is to make sure that the levels are right, because you don't want to get the clipping on the thing. So you want to, like, when it's time for you to do a sound check, you want to make sure you're being very very firm, or purposeful, I think would be the term that the plebs would use.
Purposeful, yeah.
Very purposeful, yeah, because you want to make sure that the sound engineer is getting an appropriate signal. That would be indicative of perhaps your average performance. Yeah, maybe not at your peak. I know, like some guys go like this and that. But usually, what happens is after you do a sound check and you get all the line checks or whatever, then you start playing. Everything's about 25% louder.
Yeah,
so that's why
makes sense.
A lot of sound guys will like get you to like perform, and then they'll like turn it down for a while.
That makes sense.
Yeah, but that's what we're doing here. And we've also changed mics here, so hopefully you're liking that too. Try not to move it too much, because I don't have one of those basses with the. And maybe it's just because these new headphones I'm rocking here, I can hear everything. But
could be. I was just making sure that I'm not too close, because when I tried your headphones, I could hear myself breathing.
Yeah. Well, no, they're picking up very well. I mean, we're rocking some ghetto setup here with this podcast, but it's been fun,
I like it. Yeah.
Yeah. The production levels are pretty minimal, but
we actually got my friends and I got our podcast recorded.
Oh, did you? Okay, good. Were you able to do it here?
We did it on the guest user.
Okay.
I just because Daniel's good with computers.
Okay, you figured it out. Good. Yeah. I'll set you up a thing sometime, because it's not hard. I mean, I actually make it much harder than it needs to be. Mostly though due to the video. So if you were listening or checking us out on YouTube, you can see our my ugly mug. Cohen's fairly decent mug actually, but.
Mug?
It's a code for face. It's synonymous with face.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah, no problem. So yeah, we're gonna bang out a couple here. So the next episode we're gonna record concurrently or consecutively, I believe is the word I'm looking for. But Cohen's gonna be going to a jazz school here coming up. Well, music school based on the New York jazz approach, and so he's been digging into some of his own. Doing his own homework on jazz recordings, and this time we're going to talk about the Dave Brubeck Quartet's album "Time Out," featuring the songs "Take 5" is on there, if I recall. What else is on that album?
Well, my favorites are, of course, "Take 5," Kathy's Waltz.
Oh, okay.
Which actually made a comeback. Somebody remixed it, and it
TikTok?
circulated on the
Yeah, of course, yeah.
Yeah. I'm not on TikTok, but someone whom I know was on TikTok, and I often heard it. I was like, oh, that's kind of cool. Strange Metal Lark is very cool.
Okay.
But it's all very good stuff.
What year did that come out?
59.
Okay. Yeah, definitely the golden age of jazz, if I recall. Yeah, if you're watching.
Seems like it. Well, and so I was just actually reading the inside, and I didn't realize how influential this was on time signatures in music.
Well, because I think it probably helped that it was in the title, wasn't it? Was it in 5 or like?
Take 5 is in 5,
okay.
Which is pretty cool. Time Out, and there's a lot of weird time signatures. Like it says the first song's in 9/8, which is I think one music YouTuber I watch. I think he says 9/8 is like his favorite odd time signature to groove with.
Well, Rush did it a lot in 9/8, did they or not? Like
probably.
Well, because it's a 5 and a 4, isn't it? So it doesn't. Yeah, it's not as jarring to the listener.
Yeah, like it depends on how you count it. Really, I mean, even in 5, I think because it says that in here they were saying for Take 5 that it's in 5, which is they say it's one of the one of the most defiant time signatures in all music for performer and listener. Like, it's actually one of my it's probably my favorite odd time signature is 5, because it's obviously just 4 with an extra beat, so it's really adds a lot of opportunity. And
but it's not so jarring that it disturbs the average listener.
And like popular examples, I remember when I was just thinking about this before we started, the Mission Impossible theme is in 5.
Sure. Yeah.
And I remember when I realized that, actually I was in grade 7 and we went to walk to the movie theater, and that new Mission Impossible movie came out, and I was listening to it, counting the time signature as you do, because I was like, that doesn't sound right,
as one does when you're going to a movie.
I was like, oh wow. And I was very young and I wasn't super into theory at that time, not super into it, and I was like, oh, is that right? Wow, I was so proud of myself for finding that. But yeah, it's not something that people would just think about, but that's why it sounds good, is it's the rhythm and the melody. I actually watched a whole video breaking down why it is the way it is, and the different ways it could have been, and why the way they did it is the best way.
Like for the Mission Impossible theme. Well, I mean, it's one of the most iconic themes of all time.
Definitely.
I always just assumed that it was partly because, I mean, obviously it does create suspense, but that's also due to the push of the shots kind of against the beats. But it's short enough where it's a pattern that you can remember. So it doesn't require a lot of memory of where am I at in the scale, or in the which bar am I on?
Yeah, exactly.
In the arrangement, but I'm definitely a fan of or curious around why certain time signatures are used, at least beyond our traditional 4/4 or 3/4. Of course, is one of the oldest, I think, when it comes to because it's a waltz, right?
Yeah, so, and that's actually exactly what it said. This was one of the first, probably not only jazz records, but records in general that broke out of a standard 4/4 and a 3/4 waltz.
Okay.
It mentioned 3/4 as well, not just 4/4.
Okay.
And the song Kathy's Waltz, I think, it said it was just in 4, which was one of the only songs that was, if not the only. It has a lot of really cool strange metal lark. The whole and it's the original liner notes that they say that, and it's basically just a brief breakdown of the time signatures. Which is pretty cool.
Well, it is, and this harkens back to a time when record covers, record sleeves, record jackets, artwork, not just the artwork, but the there would be essays written on the backs of them. You wouldn't even need to open it to read it.
It's super. I mean, I always find it super fascinating when they're doing stuff like this, and it's done well and methodically, and it's it's before. I mean, I actually don't know how much that stuff would have been studied at the time.
Oh yeah,
probably
quite a bit.
Amount.
Yeah, in fact, probably more, because really it's rock and roll that kind of ruined everything, right? It took or enhanced it, depending on how you look at it. But music was an art form, but it had structure of composition and arrangement and instrumentation, which there was a very definitive flow of the progression between strings and then horns, and jazz is what kind of flipped it all around and then opened up the experimentalization. Is that a word? I don't know. I just made it up, but
experimentation.
Experimental.
I was gonna say something actually. Oh yeah, and actually, I just thought of this because we were just talking about Big Mouth and the Ghost of Duke Ellington.
Yes,
but, the Ghost of Duke Ellington has a really great quote. He's like, "Andrew, jazz is like life. You don't know what's going on, and once you finally figure it out, now I can't remember it. I ruined it now, but it was you don't know." You don't know what's going on, and by the time it's over, you just got the hang of it.
Yeah, well, that's true. Yeah, 20 minutes later, in some songs.
Yeah. Oh, it's okay, now I understand what's going on, and then it's over.
Yeah, for sure. Well, so for my journey, of course, I came to jazz like most proper music. I came to them backwards through rock and roll. So my first introduction to what I would call jazz would be Pat Metheny, because he was the rock star of the jazz 70s world through his work, of course, with Joni Mitchell. I don't want to speak out of turn. Yeah, I think he I mean, Jocko was definitely with
yeah, that was on. He was on the first like Bright Size Life. That was like the first Jocko record.
Exactly. Yeah.
Obviously, it's not a Jocko record, but
well, yeah, but everything Jocko touched became a Jocko record, for better or worse. I mean, I think it's brilliant, of course, but there's a lot of people that are like, no, let's go to Stanley KARAC because he was at least a little more sympathetic to the arrangements and the.
Yeah.
But yeah, that being said, I mean, Jocko he's the iconic bass playing rock star, of course, and Pat Metheny. So that whole, I guess they call it fusion, sort of. I guess that's where I came through. I ended up with a copy of Bitches Brew by Miles Davis on cassette when I was young, and I have listened to that a few times over the years, and I'm always in awe of it.
I think that was a record I started, and that one didn't grab me.
Well, yeah, and it may never. I don't know. Like the song "Pharaoh's Dance" is I think the first track, and I always like remember that one because it took the whole side, and it was like really cool.
Yeah.
But a guy like Miles, I think you'll get into that more in school. I assume. I don't know. I guess.
Well, another one I started listening to was is it Alice Coltrane?
Well, yeah, Alice worked with Santana as well.
Okay, yeah. Because I listened to that one. I started that one. I'm realizing I seem to have a bad habit of starting and like if I'm in the car and then not finishing with her.
Well, jazz is so long, right?
Yeah, I mean it was like 5 songs too. The record, but Anthony Fantano, aka the Needle Drop, aka Internet's busiest music nerd.
Oh, there you go. Yeah.
Said that it's like one of the coolest, most experimental jazz records, and I do respect his opinions. I think he's got. I mean, he's put me onto some really cool music, which is super super awesome. Sure. So I thought I'd try that out.
You need that, yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah. So my introduction to jazz has been through those channels and then backwards. But I had a hard time with it, to be honest, like for a long time, and I still don't listen to it a lot. If I do listen to some of this more classic stuff, it's more out of almost more of an academic approach. Like I know I should listen to this, therefore I do. Yeah. But again, like I always say, the first time I heard Joni Mitchell Blue, I got it, even though it was ages. Same with Kind of Blue by Miles Davis. The first time I was like, okay, and same with The Love Supreme by John Coltrane.
Yeah, I don't.
You read about them, you hear about them, and then when you do finally hear them, you go, okay, now I get it. This is what's up. And
when did you? Like
not that long ago.
Like when did you get into Pat Metheny? Like,
well, Metheny, I was super young, right?
Yeah, because you got the records.
Yeah, I had records, and that's again how he was it. I mean, and then of course I helped. What a great episode, everyone! Check this out. And there's no espresso in my frappuccino that I'm drinking, which is even worse. But the connections through Metheny, and then of course his spirit brother is Bruce Hornsby, who we killed ad nauseum. But I've always been intrigued by the guys that kind of flirt on the edges of popular music, but are just odd enough to not fully immerse or to sell out. Where, see, I lived through the era in the mid to late '80s where soft jazz was an '80s thing, big time.
Soft jazz.
Yeah, so it was exactly what you'd think it is. You just take jazz and then you add a bunch of water to it, and then it's still kind of jazz. But so Kenny G was a very popular sax player, and it just awful, like just pap. Like he's a talented dude. From what I can see, although Metheny, he's so arrogant. He called Kenny G out right away. He's like, dude, you play sharp. Stop it. I'm like, and sadly, I mean, when you're that good, I guess you can tell anyone that they're lame because you're the best. But so there was a phase of quote unquote jazzy music kind of got a bad rap. But on the other hand, like hardcore jazz, like the Ornette Coleman stuff that is very experimental, almost unlistenable at times, where everything is so dissonant that it's not even really musical. You can enjoy it, or you can or admire it maybe as a fellow musician, but
I think it's important to at least experience it. But yeah, definitely like I think you can kind of tell when something is weird for the sake of being weird, and I think that's kind of what breaks through when like a song like Take 5, like it said, and it even said that everyone was surprised that it became such a huge hit because the jarring time signature, whatever. But I think if it's still art, and if it's there's lots of modern art pieces like that taped banana to the wall
Yeah.
that sells for millions of dollars. Like, that's just weird for the sake of being weird.
Yeah.
Whereas, if you actually have an idea that's in a time signature, like Take Five, I assume was something like that, and experimenting with it, and they're not just doing it to be weird and to,
Yeah.
you can kind of just tell. I think it's not a conscious thing.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. Yeah, most people, believe it or not, can actually tell authenticity. Like, even though your average listener is not necessarily astute, they actually can tell when they're being BS'd.
Yeah,
I just actually watched a YouTube video about that. I can't remember who did it, but it was about basically the 4 quadrants of like when you're marketing basically art or like music or TV to people, what their values are and where they lean. But the good common thread among all of them is they know when they're being BS'd.
Well, I don't know.
That's why those songs that we make fun of, like the Florida Georgia Line lyric video.
I was literally just gonna say, to me, that's such a slap in the face. Like we're literally just gonna put our lyrics on the video for you. Like it's either they're just, they don't get it, like they don't see the irony in what they're doing, or they're just that brilliant that they're like, we can literally slap this in your face and you're gonna eat it up.
Yeah,
I feel like they're somewhere in the middle.
I think it's even C or 3. I think it's even different than that. I think I think they are being genuine. Honestly, I think
they seem
like
genuine.
when they say, "Baby, you're a song. You make me want to roll my windows down and cruise." I think they mean it. I think they're like, let's hop in the truck and get suntans and beer cans and like all those crappy. But I think they're into that. Like,
I totally respect
and
that.
if you come from a small town and you did that for like 6 months in your youth, it's kind of fun that summer. Yeah,
that's what I think. A lot of people can relate to that, and that's good. Then as long as it's like, if people like it, I mean, what am I to say? Yeah, I mean, it's not for me, but. That's cool.
I've tried to take that attitude. Of course, it's hard sometimes, but there was garbage music at the same time. Brubeck was out too. I mean, you look at some of the like Itsy Bitsy Teeny Weeny Yellow Polka Dot Bikini. There were these songs that were just throwaway pop ditties even then, and there still is now. Yeah, and that's okay. I mean, that's just the dream. But we need people like like our Brubecks or Miles Davis or. Coltrane, whoever it is, they to push these envelopes musically, and there will always be camps where I think we prefer quote unquote the finer things, and they will be into that, and then there's the other people that that Kenny G has some nice music. I'm going to buy that for my CD and play, or for my CD player and let her buck. So that's how it goes. There was a time like even in the film industry, like where. If you did television, you were either selling out or your career was over. If you went from movies to television, you could go the one way but not the other. Now everyone's jumped back into television because movies suck or they're so arty now. Like Bill Maher just did the thing where, because like if you look at the top 10, like the movies nominated for Best Picture, like are we all like everything's about like the Black Panthers and somebody's dying and
now there's like criteria you have to meet to get a grant.
Of course, and it's all
a whole other discussion.
It's affirmative again.
That actually reminds me of Bill Maher because he did Religulous, obviously, and
that
which
reminds. I didn't like, by the way. I love Bill Maher, but I did not.
I didn't watch it, but I mean, I think I don't know his attitude towards his atheism. But I mean, like a lot of I like to make fun of the enlightened atheist Redditors that are, they're because they're atheists, so they're better than everyone. And I mean, I think we all have that phase. Smart. If not, you're stuck in the 8th grade.
Well, you should be agnostic, even if you're a good Christian or Muslim or whatever you are.
And there's that quote I talked about on the mental health podcast about the Illuminati. Then the actual Illuminati and the guy who made it said. Religion and science should go hand in hand and not be competitors.
Of course, yeah.
And I think that's really important.
And actually, that kind of does tie right back to all of this because you need people that push the limits. You also need people that are just trying to be good people and follow their muse or their spirit animal. And it's It's not exclusive. I mean, of course, yeah. Ultimately, you can't prove a lot of things that we like to think are faith. Well, see, it's proved. Well, no, it's not proved at all. But there are so many unexplained things that until we actually know the answer,
I don't think you can have faith if there's proof. Because if it's proof, then it's a fact. So,
well, yeah, and yet, man walked with dinosaurs 4,000 years ago in some museums. So, so yeah, maybe we should just talk specifically about this edition. So, yeah, we got you this for your birthday timeout. So it's got it's a 2 vinyl Dave Brubeck timeout, and it's mono and stereo. Have we talked about the differences in the mix? Or
maybe not on the podcast, but I know that. From a very young age, because you had the Beatles in mono.
Right. Yeah.
And
nice. Yeah, I haven't failed for that. That's your
was the white one. And then the black one was stereo.
That's right. Which was the more popular one. And it was all the black Beatles box was actually mastered a little differently too. It was mastered a little more louder and compressed to keep up, so it sounded more modern compared to, so you could play a Beatles song on your playlist next to a Green Day song and they wouldn't sound too out of place. Yeah. So that's another key component of record making. But back in the day, up until the late 60s, most people listened to music in mono. So one speaker coming out of a little radio or on the dash in their vehicle or even in their homes, like they would have like maybe a little record player or whatever and just had the one speaker. But the advent of stereo came where you had a left channel and a right channel, and it commonly was only used in like classical, I think, to create more of the feeling of that you're in the room in the auditorium listening, in the theater listening to the piece. So they would pan things a little bit over here and a little bit over there, and then of course the Beatles didn't actually get involved in stereo mixing until basically until Abbey Road. Before that, they would be heavily involved in the mono mix, and then they would allow the engineers to just do a stereo mix. Yeah. And then what also ended up happening at certain times is they would do a stereo mix, and then they would do a fold down mix. So they would do the stereo mix, and then they would just push them together, and then it would end up being in mono if you just put all the channels together, if you sum them out. But the idea of mono versus stereo, you can actually be tricked into thinking that an album is better than it is or a song's better than it is if it's in stereo, because it sounds cooler. Yeah. It creates space, but it can still be a pretty crappy song. So there's sort of that rule of thumb that says, like, if you can mix it down in mono, because look at how we're listening now. Our phones are, well, actually some of them are now stereo actually, but the speaker one's at the bottom, one's on the top. But really, we went right back to listening to garbage audio quality for a long time. And so we've had to now master new music, or mix it and master it to all these different formats and all these different listening scenarios. Have you ever been in a store when all of a sudden you hear like part of the song, but you can't hear the whole song? Like,
Yeah. Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah, that's because like one speaker is running the right, and then over on the other end of this
I didn't even think about over that. That's funny. Yeah.
So they're not even thinking about the listener, right?
Yeah, that's funny.
Even FM radio, actually some AM used to be stereo, but later on, but FM, so you'd have just right through the air. If you're in your car stereo, you'd have left and right.
God, yeah.
So these are pretty not necessarily technical, but very nerdy comparisons. So like some will say though that like listening to Timeout in mono is a different experience than listening to it in stereo. And that could be true. I don't know in particular on this one, but the mono mixes on the Beatles ones were they were a little bit different, because a lot of us grew accustomed to listening to the stereo mixes, because if you grew up, in the 80s or whatever, then of course they put the stereo ones on the CDs. They actually had to remix. I think it was Help and Rubber Soul, I think, ended up having they were actually mixed in stereo back in the day, and they were kind of like, they were experimental mixes, so they were kind of they weren't the intended mixes that the Beatles wanted us to hear, so they actually were shelved. You can get them now. They're actually tacked onto the mono discs, but they were remixed for the 87 compact disc reissues, and those mixes are great, but they're just kind of straight up mixes. Like there's nothing weird about them at all, no weird panning or anything. So it's all about the listener experience.
And like for Timeout, I'm not familiar enough with the just the songs in general.
Yeah.
At least not for my standard of being familiar with it.
Yeah.
So I probably wouldn't notice a difference. I don't even think I've done the mono yet. I've just done the stereo.
Well, it's funny though, but what you listened to it on was probably, it's on that little thing, right? That little
Yeah.
which I probably, well, it could be stereo, but because if the speakers are kind of close to each other anyway, you don't really notice
exactly. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, I think I've always thought there was a big difference between the mixing. Like, I think mono to me sounds more hollow.
Well, yeah, it won't be as brilliant, but to do a really strong mono mix is harder because you're working with the frequencies. You're going to learn all about this in school too, but like you have the frequency spectrum, and then with one speaker, you're fighting against. You've got all these different instruments and voices and things, and they're all competing for your listening space, right?
Yeah,
that's why Phil Spector, if you do a deep dive into his productions, I mean, some will say, oh, he overproduced, and I mean, he kind of did, but at the time, they only had 4 tracks to work with, or 8 tracks maybe at the end of his heyday, but he would have like 3 bass players in the room, like, because he couldn't mix later. It was all okay. We got to get all of these people to give us all the sounds I need, and I need to hear it all through one speaker, because up until the late 60s or early 70s, even, everyone was listening on one speaker. It needed to come out. It needed to sound like an orchestra. It needed to like grab the listener's attention through one little tiny speaker.
Yeah,
and he was able to make these masterpieces. That's why they called it the Wall of Sound. It was his production style was the Wall of Sound. There was so much going on, but it still started with a great song and a great singer for the most part, and then all these amazing players all arranged in this large room. Okay, we're gonna have to get you to move backwards, and you come a little bit forward because we got this microphone here, and we're gonna get you all to play this song all at the same time. Yeah, and but then they create a masterpiece that lives on for infinity now. Yeah, and nowadays we have the technology to do one little piece at a time, and we can bring it all together and create these perfect little productions.
Yeah, and I think a lot of the what makes music and art in general, like the imperfections, like I think is it a country song lyric, all your perfect imperfections, something that's like that. Yeah. But in art, I think it's very applicable. Like, and even we were just talking about like Archer, our cat, like just like the fact that he's got a little bit more white on one side of his nose just makes it so much cuter.
Yeah, he's so cute.
But yeah, like and I think even talking about a while ago we were talking about Green Day, American Idiot. Whenever I'm listening to Give Me Novocaine, I always, at the end, it's the drums are like, he's trying so hard to stay in time, but it's like, it almost sounds prog, but it's not.
Yeah.
But I'm like, oh man, but like I wouldn't have it any other way.
Of
like,
course,
because you just know that it's real.
Yeah.
And it's not like, they could probably fix it and make it straight, but it's just robotic at that point.
Well, like, and that's the problem with digital recording, is that it because you can make it perfect, people try, but things do lose their spark at a certain point. And that album was made at a time where they could have fixed that quite easily, but they chose not to, and that's okay. Yeah, that's a great thing.
Yeah, it's great.
There and digital mistakes are. I was just talking to a buddy about this last week. They're less musical, quote unquote. So when Auto-Tune first came in and they started fixing, you'd be able to sing a song, and then they can actually go in and like fix the pitch. If you're not running the software properly, or if you're not listening close enough, at least it used to be this way, it would catch the note and it would correct it, but it would correct it so quickly that it didn't sound very musical. So it lost it didn't. So that's a mistake in my opinion, but it's not a good mistake.
Well, another thing too is like, if it's correcting, and I'm just saying this because I actually don't know how that would work, because I'm just thinking about it now, is like, what if you're on a note that doesn't sound right, but you want it that way?
Okay. I went through this. So I actually, just for myself, I sing a little bit flat.
Okay.
And I believe that it's intentional. I think it's just based on the influences that I've had. It's just a little bit under the note, but when I record, because basically everything gets run through some pitch correction because it's just better. But my stuff gets shifted. Like I can hear, so when I hear my own singing back in the final version, it sounds sharp to me, but it's actually on.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That's
yeah. So
weird,
it's jarring for me, just as a musician that knows my voice and knows my playing style. Slide too. Like slide players will play up to the note, and then sometimes they'll play a little bit flat or a little bit sharp, but that's what makes the difference between a slide guitar player too, is how much time they spend above or below the actual note.
Yeah.
I prefer to be a little bit behind. Like that's definitely like Lowell George, Bonnie Raitt was like always a little behind. They would rarely go sharp, right?
Yeah.
That's where I come. To me, that's blues. Like that's soul, that's feeling. But yeah, when the machine grabs you or grabs your notes and fixes them,
it's weird.
Yeah, and you can actually you can change that too. You
Well, 'cause,
can
like,
adjust the sensitivity of it or whatever.
I assume it just goes by hertz, because I don't remember exactly what it is, but I think like middle C on a piano is like 420.
440. Yeah.
Is it 440?
Or no, 440 is A. I'm sorry. Yeah.
So something around
C
there,
is,
then 430 something.
447.
So I assume it would just go by the sense or whatever, because when I'm doing my ear training, and I have to hum notes, I'm actually always sharp a little bit by like 20 cents. Which is probably quite a bit, but I'm not trained.
So funny because, and I'm always flat. So if I'm told, like from my pitch memory, if somebody says, hum me that song or hum a note to me cold, and you check it, it's about half a step off. I'm usually half a step below. Yeah.
Like from the actual key.
From what it should have been. Yeah, or should be. Yeah.
That's cool.
It's close, but I'm usually flat. Huh. Yeah. So I don't know. There could be a whole psychology around that. It could be just random.
Maybe
I don't know.
The music we listen to.
It could be. Yeah, I don't know. I'm not sure. But
well, and I guess even if you think about like when people are playing like slide guitar or even guitar just without slide, and you use vibrato to go. So if you were just on the note, that would be so boring.
Well, yeah, it is, and you can hear it every day if you turn on the radio.
Yeah, that's
in
true.
fact, like so when autotune was invented, the true like the trademarked version of digital pitch correction, it has a vibrato thing on it. You can add vibrato to the note too. So, and you can manipulate it manually, or you can allow it. You can give it a range, and because there is someone I know, there might be a couple listeners that will know who I'm talking about, but I know that this person does not sing with vibrato. But when you listen to this person's album, there's some nice vibrato in there, and it had to have been faked. Yeah. So yeah, the technology's there, but it's so funny because for all of that, we've now come full circle to where Billie Eilish can just sit there and go, "What does she say? Duh," or she says, "It's true because what's that one song she did? It's true because I say it's true," or it's just
something like that.
Oh
probably.
my God!
Yeah. But yeah, she does say "duh."
Yeah. Oh no, I think therefore I am. I'm like, she's not even singing, nor is it rap.
Yeah,
it's on time, I guess. I assume she sang it in time, or maybe her brother
Probably.
put it in time because you can
move
notes around. But they are experimenting, and these are tools, just as these dudes and gals were back in the jazz days. So maybe just to get back on track, just somewhat. So yeah, this is. Maybe at some point we'll nerd out and listen to the vinyl with mono and stereo. I doubt we're going to tell the difference. To be honest, even with the Beatles, the mono mixes were not as crucial to me as having less compressed masters when I bought those.
Oh yeah.
I was more driven to make sure that I got the mono box because it had what the Beatles more appropriately wanted to be represented to our ears. They were in the room when they were mixed in mono for most of their albums up to and including the White Album. So then after that they went to stereo. But
for mono mixes, I like listening to them if it's something that I already listened to and I liked it. Like the Soundgarden, I think I mentioned that last time on the podcast too, is like the Soundgarden Super Deluxe. Yeah. And I was like, oh, sure, I'll listen to, because there's some killer songs. Like, let's hear it in the different mix or like a different producer, like see their take on it. And which is really, I like it.
Well, that's where Steven Wilson has come in, right? Right. He now has been remixing in 5.1 surround sound, taking all these old albums, going back to the original masters, and creating new, like even better or different, more expansive versions from the regular stereo versions. Or an early version of surround sound was called quad sound. Okay. So 2 in the front, 2 in the back. So there was stereo behind, or stereo rear, kind of like a car would be, actually, because you have rear and front. But Deep Purple Machine Head has a quad mix, but you needed either a special reel-to-reel player or a special turntable, which would and an amp to process it into the forward. So now you can reproduce a quad mix on a proper 5.1 home stereo or whatever, because it has 5 plus the sub. So there's always been experimentation of, there's the music being played and the voices being captured, and then how it's going to be presented to the listener. And the reason that mono mixes kind of matter to older people is because they first heard it in mono. Yeah. So they didn't, and they probably didn't even think about it. It was just, that's that song. Yeah. But and
then they listen to it again and it sounds all polished
or it just sounds different. Yeah, they're hearing different things, or it just has a different experience, because mono is a little bit more immediate. Yeah, and there's less trickery going on with our senses, right? Because it's the same in both ears, and it was harder to mix in mono for sure, and that's still the way it is now. It's far easier to make something sound really thick and cool when it's in stereo.
Yeah. And another fun thing to mess around with like the hertz and stuff is because Spotify gives you the option, then they have those settings of like the frequencies or whatever.
Yeah, they have an equalizer in it.
Yeah, the equalizer. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And I think that kind of, I mean, it's obviously different than stereo and mono, but that also adds another layer of your own customization of experiencing an album. Like I think I even said when I went through a Haken album and I was like, I'm going to try a different sound setting. And because I'm so familiar with hearing it on, I usually just use the loud setting. Yeah. And I was like, sure, I'll try a different one. And I don't remember which one it was, but for me, it was like a whole new album. And I was like, oh my God, I could go through every setting and it would probably feel amazing.
So that loud setting is and I'm guilty of using it too. Or there's one, and I think in Apple it's called Late Night or whatever. I don't. But what they do is it's the most compressed. So it, like, if you're in a listening situation where maybe there's a lot of noise, or you need it like quite loud, it is technically louder, but it also is compressing. It's poking up certain frequencies and capping them. But therefore, then you lose dynamics. So that's why, remember, I used to try and get you to shut your compressor pedal off once in a while. Yes, I remember that. That's more just so you don't get accustomed to playing with. You can lose dynamics if you're playing with it all the time. True. It's also not the end of the world. You can still play with dynamics and have a compressor, but dynamics is often a lost art. Whereas again, in these eras, like with these guys playing, we're going to play quieter now, and then we're going to play a little bit louder now. Whereas we're often accustomed in new music to everything's the same level all the time. That's true, pop music is just it's a force. There isn't necessarily a lot of instruments now, which I am finding interesting. Like you got basically just a bunch of 808 samples and then some sort of synth pad and like bass drops, and then that's it. Yeah. So it's sparse, but it's still very compressed and pushed. Yeah. And that's what you would have found listening to Haken is if you take it off a loudness setting and you go to like just some other setting, you're going to maybe get a little bit more of those dynamics, and you're going to hear certain frequencies that may have been kind of capped with the compressor, with the compressing of the signal. Yeah, definitely. So it's all a thing, and this is stuff as a music creator you're going to find too. Like there's going to be a lot of things that you'll want to try, or that other engineers will get you to try with dynamics and frequencies. Because there's loudness, like frequency. There's volume, which is decibels, and then there's frequencies, which is your
hertz.
Yeah. And that's the art of the recording side. Other popular albums from that era, obviously that I'm familiar with is Love Supreme by John Coltrane and Kinda Blue by that. And I'm sure there are many others that you're going to encounter.
Well, the next one we're doing is 4 years prior to this, not from 1955.
Yeah,
so.
we're gonna talk about Glenn Gould and his original Bach variations, which he did right before he died. Again, I'm not sure how much you read. Yeah, we'll save that for the next one. Yeah. So we'll put up a little podcast, little playlist.
I don't know much. I don't actually know any of thing outside of this album. So I think
for Brubeck, yeah. I mean, I don't think we'll focus on the artist more than maybe we'll think about the era, like that era of jazz, and we'll throw some. And if you've been listening on Spotify, you've already heard some of our select choices in between segments of this. But jazz is an important part. It's a very American thing, and there are some Canadian players involved in it too.
Like the famous quote meme from the Bee Movie was when Barry B. Benson says, "You like jazz?" Became a meme. Don't know why. The
So
Bee
weird.
Movie was such a weird.
Like
it became such a big meme. Like that was like the original meme where they was like every time they say a certain thing like B, it speeds up, and the whole movie was like 6 minutes if you did that, or it would be like something with the script of the movie. I don't know why that movie in particular became the meme, but or like the opening line is like. According to all known laws of aviation, bees shouldn't be able to fly, or something like that, and that became a meme.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh, the internet.
Yeah. Wonderful.
Nice. All right. Okay. Well, thanks for listening to This Road Is Mine. My name is KARAC HENDRIKS. Cohen Hendricks across the table from me. We were just talking about Dave Brubeck Quartet's Time Out. Yeah. If you're watching on YouTube, we're going to hold that up one more time. This is that's a limited edition too, right? 1,500 copies.
Yes. This was 155. So
okay.
Limited edition, first pressing of 1,000.
Nice. 1,000. Okay. And who?
Well, because it's out of 1,500, but
right.
I assume because this was 155, it's before 1,000.
Yeah, for sure. Is it? Yeah. Is there? Who's the label on that? Or I don't know, because it would have been I want to say it was a Columbia record, but. It doesn't matter. Yeah, I was just curious. It's a great. Yeah, it was the same price as the other one, so I thought may as well get you can nerd out.
The old cover, I really like.
Yeah,
they have it in here.
The original cover is very cool. Yeah, that's an iconic cover for sure.
They actually have it at Indigo.
Nice. Actually, here, just go that way a little bit. Yeah, there it is. Okay, perfect. All right. Well, thanks for listening. Yeah, we'll talk to you soon. Peace, and we out of here from the playground.
Peace and love.
Peace and love. Peace and love.